Hey, next on the T Nation, thanks for coming back and tuning in to part 2 of episode number 46, featuring Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher Scott Munroe. Scott came highly recommended to me by Jeff Smith, a wonderful friend of the show, a guy that I have a great deal of respect for, and he said, you got to have Scott Munroe on the show. And like I say, when Jeff recommends somebody, you got to have him on the show. And Scott did not disappoint. A lot of wonderful stories, a lot of great instruction ahead for you as well. I can't thank Scott enough for being a part of the show. Thank you for coming back and tuning in. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Every January, PGA Tour Superstore pros meet every manufacturer, learn about the latest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
Okay, now next on the tee with me is Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher and one of Golf Digest top teachers as well, and that is Scott Munroe. Like James Hong, who came on the show a few weeks ago, Scott also came highly recommended to me by Jeff Smith, another one of the top 100 instructors in our game, and a guy who's become a wonderful friend over the last couple of years. And when Jeff Smith says you should have this guy on the show, then you have this guy on the show. Scott is from Indianapolis, Indiana. He studied here in Georgia, where my daughter also got her undergraduate degree at Georgia Southern. And that's not the only tie that we have to each other outside of Jeff Smith. Scott and I also share the same birthday. And I couldn't be more excited that I get to have Scott with me here this week on Next on the Tee. Hey, Scott, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic. I didn't know your birthday is April 19th.
It is April 19th. So if you don't mind me asking, what year? I'm guessing I'm several years older than you.
Night. You get that?
Somehow I missed it. But
1961.
1961, I'm 65. You look a heck of a lot better than I do.
Well, I do live in Boca Raton, Florida. We have ways to make you look younger down there.
No doubt. So, Scott, I got to start off by asking, how does a kid from Indiana end up going to play his college golf at Georgia Southern?
Oh, my gosh. It's, believe it or not, I'm in Nantucket this summer, and I was just one of the bartenders at the Sea Grill in Nantucket, probably one of the best restaurants in the island. This guy sat next to me. He goes, that's Wayne Gretzky's, niece. I go, no way. So I'm talking to her, and in 1977, Wayne Gretzky started his career at the Indianapolis Racers hockey team. And we just were sharing some ice one night on the Carmel Ice game. I'm doing a couple laps, and I start talking to him, and I go, man, you're skinnier than I was. I was 6 foot tall, 114 pounds, freshman, North Central High School, biggest high school in Indiana. And I said, you're going to get killed out there. He goes, no, if I was your size, I'd get killed. But no, you just got to do this with your arm. So that was, and I put the skates away, put the football away, and picked up a golf club.
So why Georgia Southern, though?
It's funny you asked that. I went to Vincennes for a year, junior college at Southern Indiana, because I had only been playing golf a year. So I went to Vincennes University, junior college for a year, and I knew their academics, you could go anywhere. So I played there for a year and did all right. And then my family's from West Georgia. For my father's in the clothing business, so I had a chance to go to West Georgia. So I'm there talking in 1981. And my dad leaves the room, and the coach goes, you don't want to go here. We suck. We're starting football, and, our golf team. You want to go to Georgia Southern. So he called the coach. My dad's out of the room. It's before cell phones. And then my dad comes in, he goes, all right, let's sign. You get a full scholarship to West Georgia. He goes, no, actually, I'm going to go walk on at Georgia Southern.
Scott, something else I find fascinating about you is in the late 80s, you moved over to Australia and became one of the top players over there on their tour. Talk about that.
I think I was one of the top Monday qualifiers on their tour. 1987, I was probably my best year. I graduated from Georgia Southern. I was, I don't know, maybe a 0-1 handicap. I don't know. And so I started selling insurance back in Indianapolis, still working at a golf course, family golf course that I worked at, for 10 years, Sycamore Springs, which is now Holmes. But when I started selling insurance, all of a sudden I started playing great golf because I wasn't putting the pressure on myself to do well. I just going out and playing with clients. And then one of my good friends, Mark Matthews, who's actually a good high school coach now, they won the state 2 years in a row. He said, you need to go play in Australia. So that's I got some sponsors, and I went down there. I qualified. That summer, I had a chance to win the Pub Links, just missed in the quarterfinals, and I had a really good year. I ended up being Player of the Year in Indiana in 1987 by 1 point. And I went to Australia, qualified, but, it was a Monday qualifier. It was one of those deals where, I never realized how important it was to be a +5 or +6. And that's the first thing I ask kids, what's your handicap, or anybody. And, I'm a 0, 1, 2. I go, well, I know 14-year-old girls that are +5, +6s. So you got, it's one of those things, people don't realize how big a stroke is. So I played for a couple of years there and came back to the States. And I was teaching on the tour there. I was helping players like Ian Baker Finch and Peter Senior. I'm giving lessons to people, and I'm the one that needs the lessons. So even when I was playing back then, I was always teaching. So it was one of those things where it was, I was listening to Tim a minute ago. It was natural for me to teach.
And speaking of teaching, when you were over there, I read that you started golf academies for Jack Nicklaus. I also read that when you were over there, you started golf academies for Jack Nicklaus. What was that like?
That was the second time. So I was over there in 87, 88, 89, came back to the States. Luckily, I worked for Mike Adams. So I was with Mike Adams for 4 years, really learned about golf, the golf school business, which was, we're coming out the Golf Digest schools, and the schools that were going back then, we were the only ones that had the technology. We had the V1, and a lot of people had never even seen their swings on video and slow motion, drawing the lines. And so I had an opportunity to, one of the players, a good friend of mine that I played the tour with in Australia, Andrew LeBroy, who's still teaching over there. I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. So if I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's either one of my mates from Australia or somebody's, been in an accident. So I said hello. And I had a chance to go over there. So I went back over there, met Jim Flick, interviewed with him. He just wanted to see me hit some golf balls. And so I went over there and ran the Jack Nicklaus golf at 3 different locations in Australia. So that was really good. It was good to come back. And going back to Australia, I'd won a lot of wine and champagne and a lot of tournaments. So I told my friends, now don't drink this. I'm coming back. The minute the plane took off, it was gone. Don't press Aussies with wine and champagne.
So, Scott, when Jeff told me about you, he said, Scott's got a ton of great stories. He's shaky, but he's got a ton of great stories. So no pressure, but tell me about some of the stories. If you're sitting around with a bunch of buddies at a bar or at the house and you're having a cookout or whatever, what are some of your favorite stories to share?
Well, I don't know if he's been on your show, but at Georgia Southern, again, I was always fighting from behind. I'm a natural lefty. And so I played hockey right-handed, but the stick was flat in the mid-'60s. I've been skating since I was like, 3 or 4 years old. So somehow I got a stick in my hand that was curved for a righty. And I would turn it upside down and go the other way with it. The next thing I know, I'm shooting hockey pucks right-handed. And then I'd come to the plate in Little League and, I'd stand left-handed and the coach, your father, whoever, would turn you around. So I'm playing sports right-handed, but I'm actually a lefty. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that. And I learned this from working for Hank Caney. The interview process for me, take about a minute, but, I want to know if the person's left-handed, right-handed, any injuries, how's their vision, balance, blah, blah, blah. But if I do have a lefty that is playing right-handed, I want to know that. And the reason I'm leading into this is I've given Jimmy Connors a lot of lessons.
Really?
I was actually a tennis ball boy in the Indianapolis clay courts in 1976. And this is, you probably noticed this on your show with a lot of these great players, in any sport. They remember everything, and so with Jimmy, I go, we're hitting some balls. And I saw him with Jim Flick a couple of times out in Arizona, but so I started helping him before the pandemic, and he was our teaching pro at the Boca Resort where I'm still. And, he goes, I said, now you're a lefty, but you're playing golf right-handed. So he had watched his kids get lessons to pick up golf. So when he started doing the same thing. So it's like hitting a backhand. If you're a lefty, you're hitting a two-handed backhand, which is an advantage. But you have to know how to control your forearm. Your lead arm now is your lead arm. And a lot of times, lefties that are playing right-handed, especially most of the hockey players, they're going to hit the ball. They don't know how to control their left forearm. So that was something we talked about. It was fun. But so I asked him, I said, do you remember 1976? You played Manuel Orantes in the quarterfinals at the Indianapolis clay courts. He goes, yeah, you mean those dogs were barking? There was a veterinarian right next to the center court. And every time he would start to serve, the dogs would start barking. So he'd flip them off. Everybody'd laugh. And I said, how do you, I remember it like it was yesterday. Like, skating with Wayne Gretzky. But, it's funny. I think as we get older, we remember stuff that happened, 40, 50 years ago. I can't remember stuff that happened like 10 minutes ago, but part of being in the sun too long.
You mentioned the word vision a minute ago, and when you and I were talking prior to the show, you were telling me about Bernhard Langer and getting one contact for his eye, and then the next thing you know, he's out there winning a Masters, winning tournaments. Talk about that.
It's funny. I thought that's the one thing that I thought. There's only 2 or 3 people out there. The vision as you get older too. It's even, that's one of my interview questions. I said, you wear contacts, you wear glasses. I'm looking at their glasses, or they're looking over the top. Oh, I got trifocals on. I had a guy one time that, his swing looked beautiful. He kept hitting grounders, and I'm like, do you have insoles in your shoes? No. And I said, tell me about those glasses. I was just guessing. I'm, pulling stuff out of midair. He goes, oh, these are trifocals. I'm going to take them off for a minute. Then he hit it perfect. So I always thought that vision, this is going back to the mid 80s. I thought that vision would be a really big thing. It is in race car driving. And Herbert Price, who's really good friends with Bob Winters, who's been on your show before, another Indiana native. And I went through a whole session with him training my eyes. My eyes have actually, I'm 63. My eyes have gotten better the last 2-3 years. So that's something that can actually get better with age. People think it doesn't. It's a muscle. There's our exercises, but it was really interesting. So I got contacts, and I was wearing glasses at the time. It changed everything. I've been wearing contacts since 1985, and it's really helped me a lot. But I'm looking at and I see Bernhard Langer's picture in there, and he'd actually come down from I think he was playing in Detroit or somewhere. He drove down to Logansport, Indiana, middle of nowhere, just north of Indianapolis, and they did some eye exercises, and he found out that he just needed and he put that contact in one eye and ended up winning the Masters in Harbortown. I think it was 1985. I'm not sure if that was the 85 or 86, one of those dates. But I asked Bernhard about it, and he had helped me with some putting stuff when I was trying to write a book for Golf Magazine on the long putter. So he helped me a lot. And I said, why do you have a round grip on there? He says, because these 2-ball putters have a tendency to aim to the left, which is true. So he could always adjust it. But it was a really interesting thing. And it's, a lot of the stuff you've heard on your show and a lot of people you have, a lot of stuff comes around. You never know who knows who and what they know and, where it's going from there.
Scott, you mentioned a moment ago about being up at Nantucket, and I know you spent some time there at Nantucket Golf Club. I lived down the South Shore. When you head south from Boston towards the Cape, I lived in a town called Marshfield for many years. Nantucket Golf Club is a pretty exclusive private golf course. It was designed by a great friend of the show, Reese Jones, has been on many times. Take us inside the gates a little bit. Tell us about the club.
It's unbelievable. They moved a lot of dirt, but we just redid the bunkers this year, and it's got a Scottish look. It's dried out a little bit. It's just fantastic. I mean, it's one of those courses you can play every day. I mean, a lot of people, I ask people, how's that club you're at? It's great. And I said, could you play it every day? That's the first thing I ask somebody. And It's a quick answer too. It's not, well, yeah, it's a yes or a no answer, but it's fantastic. You got to hit all the shots. Could be blowing 30, 40. I think playing in Australia and teaching in Australia helps me there. Being able to hit, the ball low and, maybe putt from 20 yards out or use your hybrid from 20 yards out on a flat lie. But it's a fantastic golf course. It's probably one of my favorite. And it reminds me, a good friend of mine who just passed away last year, Glenn Joyner, he was here about 7 years ago, and he says, "Mate, this is just like Melbourne, mate, except there's deer instead of kangaroos." And he was right. I mean, and the Morning Peninsula and Southern Victoria, a lot of those sandbelt courses. I mean, there's 7 of the best courses in the world in about a 20-mile radius just south of Melbourne, and it's that kind of course. So Reese did a really good job on it.
Tell us about the 18th hole, because I hear it's a pretty tricky par 5 to try to end your round on.
It really is. We just had our club championship, and we got a couple of new members, a little younger, and they're bombing it over the hill and catching it, kind of like at Augusta, when you catch the downslope. If you can catch the downslope with the right to left, but it's really good. The last 2 or 3 holes, it's super.
Let's switch gears, and you were telling me something that I think is absolutely genius. You've got a wonderful way of teaching the game, teaching it backwards, if you will. Talk about that.
This is you are the first one to hear this. The whole world has not heard this yet. So, first of all, I'm honored to be on your show, and being able to hit a driver. Everybody talks about how important the driver, which it is. I had a short career because I didn't drive it. And you can if you hit the ball well and you putt mediocre, you can win a lot of money, maybe not win a lot of tournaments, but you're consistent. But being able to take the driver and do different stuff with it, and I'm pretty good at helping cure people with the yips. So I'll have them chip with a driver, I'll have them putt with a driver, and just mix it up. Putt with a driver, putt with a 3-wood. And what it does is it levels out your swing, and being able to hit a driver off the ground, maybe pooched up a little bit, it helps you have a level swing and helps you understand loft a little bit better. So if you're level, the ball will go up, and that's not going to go up a lot. And then right after that, I'll switch them to a 3-wood, have them hit that off the ground. And so going backwards, I found their posture's good because they're taller. The clubs come to them. And then as you go down the line, all of a sudden when they get to the irons, even the mid irons, it's a lot easier to hit. And now you change the ball position. Now let's have a little more knee flex. And now when you brush the ground, the ball's going to go up in the air. See how easy that is? Remember how it didn't go up in the air that much with a driver or 3-wood? So I don't know. I've just been messing around with that. Davis Love, Dad helped me with this in college, hitting drivers different distances. So I've been doing it for a long time. And being able to hit a driver different distances with a full swing, that is not trying to punch it, but changing your arm speed, your hip turn on different distances is really helpful. And I think it's going to be good. And, you've seen Bryson DeChambeau, he's, hitting drivers off the deck, and that one guy, DOD, hitting drivers off the deck. But being able to hit a drive, and again, I just had a guy today, he says, I'm having trouble with my fairway wood, so I got him hitting drivers off the ground. He says, now here's your 3-wood. He goes, oh my gosh, then he hit it perfect. So being able to hit a driver off the ground, in the old days, we'd have people hit 1, 2, or 3 iron. And if they could do that, then they'd go back to the rest of the stuff, and it'd be a lot easier. So.
You did a teaching video with Mike Malizia about what the most common swing flaws that we amateurs have. Do you mind taking us through what that is?
Well, a lot of times people get happy with their lower body. So when we did that together, it was one of those things where the guy that we had is getting him set up properly. And, you hear over and over, and Jim Flick used to just go crazy. When I worked for Jim Flick, he used to go crazy. People say, turn your hips. And your hips are either turning or they're not. And what we've learned, too, about verticals is, a lot of people, we used to say, they're coming up off their toes, and that's okay. Their arms need to go down faster. So being able to time, the arm swing with the body swing, and it's not, it's not old school. People say, oh, that's, you're old fashioned, talking about their arms, wrists, and hands. And it depends on the person. And once you find their linkages out, I had a guy today, he played basketball and baseball at Duke. And luckily, I could talk to Tom House. Both of my sons were quarterbacks. So, the big question was, because he's, not only football, but football and pitchers are the same kind, pretty much linkage on how you release. And if the person was a sidearm thrower, it changes the way they come down and where they're coming from. So it's one of those things where, getting the arms coming down before the body's coming up, or getting the arms holding an angle before the left hip's turning out, and being able to recognize that. And that's why you can't teach, 90% of the instructions out there is for 10% of the people. That's why a lot of methods don't work without some kind of measuring. This person should do this by the way they met. Now, it's not always true, but being able to find the person's linkage the way that they do it, and it's just unbelievable. I've been blessed to be around the people I've been around, and, a lot of people have been on your show, but being able to take that now to communicate and make it simple and quick. Simple and quick is always good under pressure.
Scott, also back in June, you did a piece for Golf Magazine about hitting pitch shots with your belly. Talk about what you mean by that.
Yeah, that wasn't me. Somebody plagiarized that. I don't know who that was. That was somebody else. So,
right?
No, I'm just kidding. What that was, it's funny that before we shot that video, I forgot the name of the course. It's just it's just east. It's on an Indian reservation. There's a nice casino, beautiful golf course. I can't believe the name of it, but it's 36 holes, beautiful. I've been out there a lot with Jim Flick, the Cactus. So I'm sitting there, I turn around in the corner of my eye, there's a friggin' wolf standing behind me.
Oh my.
It was getting close, but it wasn't a wolf, but it looked like a wolf because it was an overweight coyote. So I asked one of the guys, I go, "That's a wolf?" He goes, "No, man, it's a coyote." I said, "Look how big it is." I go, "Coyotes aren't that big." He goes, "Yeah, he eats French fries and Coney dogs from the snack bar. Everybody feeds him, and he's got weight issues." And so that was before we filmed that. That could be an interesting story. But what I try to do, and if anybody's ever picked up the Hogan, I think he was on Ed Sullivan's show, where he's just moving his feet with his elbows into his side. Now, as he's doing that, going right foot, I'm actually doing it right now to get the feel of it. Right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. The butt of the club is aimed at his stomach. So, unfortunately, what you can't see in still pictures is you got to get the feel from the ground up. So as you're turning your stomach back, your hands on your stomach, and there are drills out there where you've seen them where, people will stick like the butt of the club into their, their belly button and then turn back, which is also a great way to keep the club out in front of you. But I just found that, there's a couple schools of thought on that, but some of the best pitchers under pressure, when they can control the length of the swing, some people go like knee high, waist high, shoulder high. But if you watch their stomach and it's turning with your hands, it's very easy to learn. It's very easy to do under pressure. Everything I try to teach is for people to perform under pressure, because there's one golf ball there. You get one chance. And so being able to practice that, and there's a lot of great stuff on the range. There's a lot of great instructors. But, is this going to work on the golf course? I remember Tiger said one time, he goes, "Gosh," in his prime, he says, "if I could hit the ball as well as I do on the range on the course, I'd really be good." Now, that's Tiger saying that, and I never forgot that. He's got a good point. And there are some good range players, but the minute you get out on the golf course, that's just one of those things where you can really control your distances. And, if I turn my stomach a little faster, maybe the ball goes a little farther. But I've got my body and my hands in sync together. That's what that's doing.
Got just a couple more before I let you go, and you got to let me know. Tell me about two Hoosiers and a Hong.
Oh, my gosh, two Hoosiers and a Hong. So when they have the big summit in Orlando, were you there this year?
I was.
So I've been the doorman for the last couple of years, and I'm tired of being the bodyguard at the door, and so I says, "Why don't we do something, two Hoosiers and the Hong? We'll bring him some donuts, the Hong, and then we got the two Hoosiers up there." So it's interesting because Jeff and I have similar stories. He was an undersized athlete playing basketball, and he didn't start playing golf until he went to college. But I think sometimes it's better to learn from someone that had to learn to play than from someone that's played their whole life. Because I learned to surf in Australia. And when I was in Australia, I didn't want to tell anybody I didn't know how to swim that well. And so I'm out there sitting on the surfboard, kind of sitting there watching everybody, pretty cool. And then I let it, I let the cat out of the bag. And man, I don't know how to swim. And they go, what? And every surfer on the beach I became a celebrity overnight. First of all, they wanted to learn to play golf, which is good. But secondly, they'd never met anybody that didn't know how to swim. So it was kind of but two Hoosiers and a Hong, we're gonna debut at the PGA show this year, and it's just being able to get different personalities as you've seen on the show. But I, work with Malaysia. I just think it's better when you work with two people. It's, when you gotta, a lot of times the pro guys on tour now, they've got a village, but there's only one pro. And then they have a short game guy, and then sometimes the short game guy and the teaching pro don't, it's a mess. So if you have a couple people on the same page that come from different angles on it, that would help you. Like if I say something and someone else does the same thing to you, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I like what Jeff said. I said, we said the same damn thing, but sometimes not. It's how you perceive things. So, still communication, some of the best teachers of all times weren't the best. They didn't know the lot, but they could communicate and they knew how to get in that person's head. And I think that's kind of an overlooked thing nowadays.
I think it's awesome. I tell you what, if you guys are going to debut that at the PGA Merchandise Show in January, that gives me something in addition to look forward to, because I think it's going to be fantastic.
Two Hoosiers and a Hong could be this could be big, along with teaching people to start with their driver. It's very controversial too, which I really like.
I think it's genius. I think that when you told me about the driver thing, I think that's genius. That's really going to make a difference in how people learn. And one of the things you mentioned about loft, I think that's going to teach people about loft, because I don't think we know enough, or we recognize enough, that there is loft on a driver, 10.5, 12, whatever you're playing, but the ball can get up in the air if you hit it right.
It's interesting too. I was taught, and what's happening, we're starting to come out. I think with technology, a lot of the stuff we thought was true, a lot of the books, over the years, the last 40, 50 years, we found out some of that stuff, that's actually not what happens. And, to protect everybody, we thought that was what happened. And, some of the PGA teaching now, but you've got kids now that are, these kids are coming out 19, 20, 21. They've been on a machine their whole life. They know their numbers, and being able to come out and they know this, they know that. And, a lot of the older guys, when it first came out, it kind of ruined some people because they're trying to zero out. But, before I get anybody and tell them anything, I said, what kind of ball do you want to hit? And sometimes, if you're -3 and, +3, and you hit a straight ball, so coming from the inside or coming from the outside, closing the face. So we've learned a lot from the technology, and I'm, being around Smitty and the Hong, it's helping me because they're real good at it, and I'm learning to get better at it. I'm good at drawing lines, coloring. I'm better at coloring than I am at other stuff, but, being able to, measure a person, show them the stuff, and show them how to use, all you're really interested in these 4 numbers right here. And being able to do that and get some results, and then the person will hit it. And I said, what was your speed on that? Okay, hit this driver 50 miles an hour. Now hit it 70. Now hit it 90. Now hit it 100. So each time they're changing their speeds. And I think that's where, the in-home sims and just setting one in your backyard by the pool and making swings, that kind of stuff, the speed work that's going around the world now. I mean, these people are coming out. It's just like, they're really good. And it's like, you got to pay, people aren't paying their dues anymore. They're already there. Now they do need experience, but you're just going to see a whole group of people now that I think somebody said the U.S. Open, there are 56 players in the U.S. Open that start with U.S. kids golf clubs.
Wow.
Which I thought was fascinating. So,
it is fascinating.
You start with the red set and you go and they work their way right up, and Hong knows that too. And, Hong wants to teach me to fence. So that's going to be my next endeavor, learning how to fence. He's a fencing guru instructor.
Is that right?
Yes, big time.
Wow. All right. Next time he's on the show, I'll have to remember to ask him about that. That's fantastic.
Been seen.
Scott, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're out there doing, whether it's on your website or it's over social media?
I'm at the Boca Resort Hotel September through May. ScottMunroeGolf.com, Scott Munroe Golf. You could contact me there. So I'm just redoing all my social media. My son is a retired quarterback. He is helping me with all my social media now. So got a bunch of stuff coming out, and just give him the phone number over that. Do people use phones anymore, or how's it?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. Thank you. No, this is I have your phone number, and that's I've got some phone numbers. People wouldn't believe I have these people's phone. I don't call them, but it's just like it's just exciting to be. I think golf's the best. I mean, I hate the pandemic. It devastated a lot of things, but golf was on its way out. The courses that survived around the world, around the country. I got friends in Vietnam that built like 7 courses around Da Nang, where we were fighting 50 years ago, and now they're. I think golf's at an all-time high, and the excitement, and people are getting better quicker, so they're staying with it. It's not an easy game to be consistent at.
No.
But if you have the right instruction and you just learn how to swing a golf club and learn how to score, you can have a little bit more fun. I don't know what the averages are on the average person, or it's all kind of skewed now. I don't know if I believe some of it. It could be false news, but it's a game of a lifetime. I've got students that are 100 years old. I've got students that are 3 years old. So it's really great.
Well, Scott, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come and be a part of the show. Jeff Smith was right. You're great. I hope you'll come back and do it again sometime.
This is the highlight of my life, because I see all my friends on here, and I said, well, how do I get on a show like this? But no, I love what you do, and it's great that what you're doing. I see your sponsors. You're big time. So it's I like the law of attraction, just hanging out with you. It's super. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll do it again soon.
Awesome. April 19th, baby. Aries.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Thanks.
See you, Scott. That is Scott Munroe. Munroe is the spelling of his last name. So just want to make sure everyone can go out there and find it and get it right. Scott Munroe Golf is where you can find him online and on social media. And I'll tell you what, when, like I say, when Jeff Smith tells me someone's great, you got to have him on the show. I'm absolutely having that person on the show. And he was 100% right about Scott. I'm sure we've just barely scratched the surface of the great stories that he has to tell. So look forward to getting him back on the show, hopefully a little bit later on, maybe into the fall. There's going to be a lot going on. He's down there in Boca. So that there's a lot of golf, and everyone's going to be heading down there for the wintertime. So hopefully we can scratch a little more time from him, get him back on the show, and hear more of his fantastic stories. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this week's edition of Next on the Tee. I want to send out my sincere thanks again to Tom Patrick, Tim Simpson, and Scott Munroe for joining me. Scheduled to join me next week are another one of the top 100 instructors in our game. Jonathan Yarwood will make a long overdue return visit. Love Jonathan. He is one of the great instructors out there that is sharing a lot of free content on his social media pages. So be sure to follow him at Jonathan Yarwood. You're going to love the free content that he's always putting out for us. PGA Tour legend Tom Purtzer will be here. We'll get our regular monthly visit from Dr. Bob Winters, the confidence doctor. Always great when Dr. Bob stops by. And then we'll round things out with a return visit from the head golf professional at the Pittsburgh Field Club. Our good friend Chris Sheehan will be here. So as always, a lot of great stuff in store for you next week. I hope you'll come back and be a part of this show with us. I want to thank our friends again over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. You can find it by going to triblive.com and then click on the sports section tab. And you're going to find the most recent episode right there front and center for you on the homepage of the sports section. Or you can click on sports and then podcast, and then you'll see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that, and a lot of the episodes from this season are waiting right there for you. So if you miss them, you can go back and take a listen. You can also find the show available on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audio Boom. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content, we're going to be on there as well. And as always, my thanks to the folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there from your favorite device. But as I say every week, most of all, my sincere thanks go out to all of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.